In your role, I was just looking at all the things that you do with Hilliard Lyons. You've got investment strategy, portfolio manager, investment support for the wealth advisors and the clients.
Mm-hmm.
You've got that role, and then you're also on the investment strategy and research group roundtable, and you meet monthly to analyze investment trends and make recommendations. You chair the investment committee, Hilliard Lyons, the trust company, and you're a member of the strategic planning team. You've got a huge number of responsibilities.
That's right. That's right. We call it being a player coach.
A player coach.
Wear a lot of different hats.
Now, my question, I guess, is that when you graduated from college, what were you planning to do?
That's right. When I graduated from college, I wanted to be a branch manager at a local bank.
At a local bank?
And it was as interesting and really as boring as there was a man that my family knew growing up that I really thought highly of. I liked how he managed his career, managed his family, and I thought it wouldn't be bad to become like Scott Frederickson, actually, is his name. And it was an interesting time, late 90s, where banking was going through a major change. And I guess it never has quit changing, but it went from a period where the branch manager had some autonomy to then quickly all the autonomy went to the home office, and for the bank that I was working at, that was somewhere in Pennsylvania. And so the branch manager really became a manager of people, and it wasn't in any way about which loan is approved or which account that we're opening. So the world of banking that I thought I was going into seemingly changed overnight, and it really then became a retail human resources managing people type of opportunity. And then it was a real sales role. Banks and branches became real sales oriented, which is understandable. But I quickly found after a couple of years that really wasn't what I wanted to do.
See, that's the self-discovery.
That's right. And for me, all I could do was try something, and then say and assess, do I like this or not? And one of the things that early on I had an interest in history, and then I was working in finance and financial history, stock markets. And so in the bank that I was working at, they had stockbrokers, is what they were called at the time, that would work in the branch. And again, I was like, well, I know this gentleman, and I kind of like where he's going in his career, and this is a new area of interest that I could get into. And so I got my securities license, and I remember going in to meet with our regional manager, and I said, Doug, I can't wait to start learning about markets. And he said, Mark, this job has nothing to do with markets. It's about sales. And which was a wonderful period for me to learn what it means to try and sell, what it means to go out and make deals and convince people to invest their money with us. It also was an interesting time to then learn about conflicts, and am I making this recommendation because it's better for me or better for the client? And this was in the world before we really got into fee-based business. It was all commission-based business. And I essentially did that for a couple of years at the same bank, and I realized, hey, this is fine, and I'm learning some good lessons, but it's still, I don't think this is my bread and butter. This isn't really where I'm finding my sweet spot. And so then I look around, and there's this new thing called financial planning that is starting to pick up some speed, and I'm like, well, that makes sense, and it's kind of big picture, holistic. How can we help people with their investments, but in many other different areas? And so I actually left the bank and worked for I got to know a gentleman who had an insurance practice, but was also doing planning for high net worth individuals. Tried that for a few years, got some great experience, really got to have a chance to work with people with some wealth, but it was still had a sales orientation.
Yeah.
And I just found for me that sales, it was a great experience. I don't regret it for a second, but that wasn't where I wanted to go.
To be.
Yeah. So it's interesting, so we're now into like year 6 of my career, and I've made 3 stops.
3 stops.
In each stop, I learned something about myself, about the industry. I found another area that I thought I could advance in, and I kind of went as long as I could until, I hit another, whether it was a wall or just a personal learning that I think I need to make a change. Yeah.
Well, going back to your undergraduate, what did you actually major in?
Finance.
In finance.
Finance.
Okay.
And it seemed to be a practical degree. It was broad based. I liked business. I mentioned also I liked history, but I thought it would at least be something that could maybe open a door for me to get out of when I got out of school.
Do you think finance did prepare you for the earlier part of your career?
It gave me a basic general knowledge base. So much of the early part of my career, though, actually had to do with sales.
Sales, that's what I was thinking, yeah.
And so it helped me understand what a stock is, what a bond is, interest rates, valuations. But it's a lot of my early career was really sales-based.
Was sales, yeah. Well, when students think about the process of analyzing and recommending stocks, what are 2 or 3 of the critical skills that you are for them to develop?
Sure. From my perspective, and this is again from my perspective, for somebody to be a great analyst, one, they have to buy into the philosophy and the process with which, like for us, we manage large cap money. We have a certain philosophy and process that we believe in, and one, we need our analysts to buy into that, to believe in that, because that's the way we view the world. So our philosophy has a lot of influence of Warren Buffett. Mm-hmm. So we look for great businesses, but we like to buy them on sale at a discount. So one, an analyst has to have bought into the process and the philosophy. The second thing, clearly an analyst needs to be able to crunch numbers. They have to be comfortable in a balance sheet and an income statement, building models. That's almost, I don't even need to say that, but I'm saying that. So belief in the process, belief in the philosophy, being able to crunch numbers, but then it really becomes an analyst needs to be able to kind of look through the narrative and to kind of scratch beneath, get below the surface, to really get a sense of what is driving the business, what is driving the results of the company. And for us, getting through the narrative in this world today is so short-term oriented.
Yes.
It's all about what happened this month, or what happened this quarter, and what about the next quarter.
Yeah.
For us, and this really comes from a Warren Buffett, we're looking out 5 years, we're looking out 7 years, we're looking out 10 years to kind of look through the noise and to see where the general trajectory of the business is going. So that takes some discipline, because it's so easy to get caught up in the narrative or the emotion of the day.
Yeah, the noise.
Absolutely. And if you turn on CNBC, there's a lot of wonderful people who are great at giving a soundbite, and CNBC is more about getting clicks or eyeballs than maybe telling you the actual story. So for me, it's that ability to look through the narrative, look through the surface, and to really get to the underlying fundamentals of the business. And then lastly, a good analyst needs to have conviction in what results they come up with, how they see the world, make sure it all is fitting together, and then stand by it. It's almost in some ways a stubbornness, where you're gonna maybe go against the grain, maybe it's not the popular thing, but oftentimes in investing, that can be some of your best opportunity.
Sure. Well, you're going to be talking to a college audience, and what message do you want, or messages would you just like to convey to these students?
Yeah, I in my job, I'm increasingly having opportunity to talk to interns and folks that are coming out of school and they're looking for their first job. I'm thinking of a gentleman right now who's looking for that first job, and my advice to him has been, and he's got a business background, a finance background. He's done some great internships. The biggest thing that I'm telling him, and I would tell other students, is get your foot in the door.
Yes.
And don't even worry so much about in that first job, is it your perfect job? Is it going to pay you the most, or does it give you this ability to travel the world or whatever? Just get in the door.
Yeah.
And then keep your nose down, do your work, and begin to develop a track record. And then look for opportunities within the firm. How can I broaden my experience? How can I get maybe a skill set, or get a credential, or do this, that, or the other to open up doors down the road? And I just feel people, me personally, we want the answers today. We want to know today what I'm going to be doing tomorrow and the next day.
Sure.
And that's my experience would be that's not life.
No.
But my experience also, though, is that when you do good work, it tends to get recognized.
Yes.
And then that opens up new doors.
Yeah.
So there's a and it's I don't mean to be corny or cliche, but it does require some patience.
Sure.
But get in that first place. Just get your foot in the door and begin to develop a track record, because it is my view would be one's track record no one can argue with.
That's right.
And so work on that track record, and those results will speak for themselves. And I think for me as a manager of other people, your one's track record begins to speak for themselves, and I look for those people who have done those things and have continued to kind of build their own personal portfolio of experiences, and identify then folks who can move to the next challenge.
Sure. Good. Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
This
Glad
is
to be
great.
here.
Thank
Okay.
you. We're looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Super.